Okay, let's look at Proverbs 3:11 and 12 one more time. My son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord, or loathe his reproof. For whom the Lord loves, he reproves, even as a father corrects the son in whom he delights. I know, I know very few of you know any Hebrew. I'm not a Hebrew scholar. I do a little study in it. But there's another Hebrew word here that's very interesting. It's the Hebrew word yakag. In English, it's spelled Yahkaag, and it literally means to rebuke with voice. Look at this slide now. Look at it again as I've highlighted and emphasized where that word is found in the Hebrew. For whom the Lord loves, he reproves. That's that word, yakag. And you see, when you discipline a child, there needs to be a balance there, a balance between a firm rod, a ruler, the paddle, and the faithful tongue. A child should always know the purpose of corporal punishment. You should explain it to them. One of the saddest things that I've ever seen is a child who has been punished corporately, paddled, and did not understand the reason for that. That's where the faithful tongue comes in here, where you must explain to them why they're receiving that. Now, I remember my dad used to say, and I didn't believe him, and you know where I'm going with this, don't you? This is going to hurt me more than it is you. And then he would explain to me why I was about to get paddled. And I never believed what he said to me on that occasion until I grew up and realized, as I administered the same kind of punishment to my children, that it's not an easy thing to do. But there needs to be a balance there where the explanation is given to the child. And good discipline then involves those two Hebrew words, yasar and yakag. And eventually, as the child grows over, there's less yasar and there's more yakag. You understand what I'm saying? There's less of the rod and there's more of the faithful tongue. There comes a time in a child's life when paddling them just is not that helpful. And incidentally, I don't know where that line is. You're going to have to figure that one out all by yourself. But you will know. You will know when it's counterproductive. While they're little, certainly the rod is appropriate. When they get a little older, you can probably do a lot more of the verbal. And that brings us to the sixth suggestion here. In your discipline, be consistent. Be consistent. That's one of my greatest battles as a parent. And if I sit here over the last two episodes and tell you about how to administer child discipline and you think I'm an expert at it, I don't want you to get that idea. You see, we're all in the same boat as parents. Now that I'm the age that I could be a grandfather, I could probably do a much better job than I did when I was younger. You see, we're all in that same boat. But consistency is the thing that was the hardest for me to do. Because I have to admit to you that there were times where I was ready to administer that corporal punishment and I did it appropriately. And then there were other times when I was just too tired to do it. I didn't want to have to deal with all of the issues, and I didn't do it, and then things built up, and then out of anger I would administer some punishment, and that's not the way that it needs to be done. It's got to be done consistently, and not for childishness, but for that willful defiance. That willful defiance. Well, if you've watched the last two programs, then I've made a number of suggestions to you that have come from the Scriptures. Next, in the last few minutes that we have together on this subject, I want to talk about some practical suggestions. These aren't suggestions I've gleaned from the Scriptures, but things I think will be helpful to you. And we'll take a look at 5 or 6 of those when we come back in just a minute. When you talk about disciplining children, let me make some practical suggestions to you. Number 1, establish the rules firmly in your home so that they know right from wrong early on. There's nothing so confusing to children as rules that are made up as you go along. If you've got rules established, kids do real well with that. If they know what to expect, they do real well. And then number 2, whenever you discipline your children, let me encourage you to do it privately. Don't humiliate them publicly in front of other people. I've had to take a child out of the grocery store before to administer discipline to them privately. And by the way, it was my own child. It wasn't somebody else's, although I've been tempted to do that before, and you have too. But you understand what I'm saying. You don't want to humiliate your child in the process. That's not the purpose of this kind of discipline. Do it privately. And then thirdly, do it firmly. Administer corporal punishment in an appropriate way, but make sure that it hurts or it doesn't do what it's intended to do, as Proverbs says, to drive the foolishness away from them. Make sure that it hurts, not abuse. Now go back and listen to what we've said the last 2 programs if you have any problems with that. And then afterwards, fourthly, stay with the child. Hold the child in your arms. As you hold the child in your arms, sob with them, cry with them after the administration of this kind of discipline, there's a bonding that occurs. And fifthly, you can talk to them. If there's ever a time when a child needs closeness and the tenderness of a parent, it's after he or she has been disciplined. Don't leave them in their room and walk out in a huff. If that's what you're doing, then you know you've done it the wrong way. You've had the wrong attitude in the administration of that discipline. And then one final practical suggestion. Deal with the attitude just as much as you would the action. Sometimes kids will do things that call attention to us that need a response, and we almost knee-jerk react to what they've done wrong. But let me encourage you, if the attitude is wrong, deal with that just as much as you would some other problem that the child has developed. And I want to remind you that the purpose for all of this, the purpose is to model God's role to the child until the child can get to the age that they can shift that authority to God. That's your role as a parent, to model God's role till they reach the point that they can shift that authority over to God Himself. There comes a time when we need to discipline them. We can see from Proverbs that God's way is the best way. We'll see you next week on What Do the Scriptures Say. Goodbye. We thank you for your interest in What Do the Scriptures Say. We hope that you'll come back to scripturesay.com often for answers to your Bible questions. See you then.